Okay, we're in the Sikha, the Hadran of Tavshim Mem Vav. It's printed in Likud Sichas Chelik Chav Zayin on page 251. We're going to learn today Ha'ara 14. Just to review the point that we learned last week. So the Rebbe brought the Abar Benel that asks a question on the Shitta of the Rambam, which many Rishonim hold the same, that there's a mitzvah. The first mitzvah is Leida Sheyesh Shemot Zirishin, to know that the Eibishter exists. So the Abar Benel asks the question, how could there be such a mitzvah? Who are we talking to? If it's a person that doesn't believe in the Eibishter, so then there's nobody to talk to tell him that you're commanding him to believe that the Eibishter exists. Doesn't believe B'chlal. If it's a person that already believes, so then you're commanding him to believe that the Eibishter exists. He already believes. It's only possible for there to be a mitzvah if you believe that there's a mitzvah of the mitzvah. All right, so upon him, the point that Abar Benel says is, and the Rebbe explains Abar Benel in a unique way, that there is the fact that a Yid knows before the mitzvah that the Eibishter exists. And that is the existence of the Eibishter that can be described, can be defined, can be explained. It's not a level that's related to Seichel. It defies Seichel. There's no Shleimus. There's nothing. It's just the essence of Hashem's existence. Then there's the mitzvah to know that the Eibishter that exists has all different kinds of things about the greatness of the Eibishter's existence, the Shleimus on many different levels. But when you speak about the essence of the Eibishter, here the Rebbe brings this famous expression of the Rashba, that the Eibishter is nimna anem nois. Anything that you think is impossible, any logical rule that exists doesn't apply to the Eibishter. Nothing. Okay, now here in the Order 14, based on this, the Rebbe explains the famous Rambam in Hilchos Shuvah that speaks about the discussion of Bchira. How could we say we have free choice if the Eibishter knows everything and he knows everything in advance of what happens? So what does it mean that we have free choice? And the Rambam says, this is a big question. And only one that has the ability to understand how the Eibishter's Yediyah works could understand how it's not a contradiction to our free choice. But since we can't really define and imagine how the Eibishter's Yediyah works, so we can't really properly answer how the Eibishter's Yediyah is not a contradiction to our Bechira. That's the bottom line what the Rambam comes to. The Rambam explains different points, but in the end the Rambam says this is something which is difficult to understand. And the Ravid actually attacks the Rambam. Says if you don't have a good answer, why open the discussion? You're not giving a good answer anyway. So what's the point of opening the whole discussion? So now here the Rebbe has a unique way to approach the singing. Let's see. Out of 14. The Rambam. Let's see what's going to happen there. Shalom. Aveltz Muhammad. It's Aveltz Muhammad. Al Pizeh Shlavai Mashakasav Rambam Hilchos Shuvah Seif Perikei Beinyan Ashayla Yediyah Bechira. Shetshuvas Shailazu Arucha Me'eretz Midachulu. The answer to this question is larger than our level of understanding. We don't have any way of defining and imagining what it means that Hashem knows everything in creation. So the Rebbe asks, you see, it's there that the Ravid says, if you don't have an answer, why are you discussing this?
But the Rambam himself says, even though you can't understand it, this is the way it is.
Correct.
So he's bavaring to...
Right, but why is the Rambam... So Ravid says, why is the Rambam bringing it up if he doesn't have a proper answer?
Everyone's going to...
So, if you have an answer, so give the answer. Just to bring up the question. No.
So what's the Ravid saying? That he himself has no question like that?
The Ravid gives a different answer.
Same question.
I think he gives a different answer to Ravid. Take a look at the Ravid inside, but he gives a different answer. Now here, the Rebbe says that if you look in Mefarshim, there's actually a very simple answer to this question. Such a simple answer, there's such a simple answer to this question that it would seem that the question doesn't begin in the first place. How could that be? Isn't this the question of the $1 million question, the question of all times, Yediyah versus Bechira? So the Rebbe says as follows: this is very difficult to understand because that a move on bepashtus itself understood should be Yediyas az dovar. Whenever you have knowledge about any fact, Eina Yediyah sibila dovar. The knowledge you have is not the cause for what it is that exists. Allah hepech. The opposite is true. Hayidiyah misuveves me'adovar. Your knowledge of something is a outcome of the fact that there's an existence, and because something exists, you have knowledge of it. Push it.
But not you have any influence on thing itself.
Yeah. It's not because you know it becomes, because it is, and you have an awareness of it. So that's what the whole concept of Yediyah is. So if so, it would seem that the same is true when we speak about the Eibishter knowing everything. The Mashi is the fact that the Eibishter knows the future. So obviously that's unique, that the Eibishter can know the future. We don't know the future. But this ability and this fact that the Eibishter knows the future, why is this? Not because the Eibishter's knowledge is what causes the future to be. Rather, by the Eibishter, he sees past, present, and future all in front of him as one now. We know of the past, we can see the present, and the future we have no idea about. But the Eibishter sees the entire kingdom of the world, 6,000 years, all in front of him at one moment. He sees everything at one time. Okay, so he sees everything now. By the Eibishter, there's no before, after. He's not limited in time. So if that's the case, Hakoshia, that I would put over here into print like a quotation. This big question. Why is the fact that the Eibishter knows everything and the future as well not forcing and changing this, that if so there's no free choice? Meikara lesse or meikara leke. There's no question. It's not a question with an answer. There's just no question here. The fact that the Eibishter knows beforehand what a person will choose, what happened, the person that chose, that already happened. The Eibishter sees the future, what will develop, what will happen. So then, why is there a contradiction in the knowledge of the Eibishter? It's just like the knowledge when you know something after it happens. So your knowledge of it is not causing it. Your knowledge is a result of its existence. So the fact that the Eibishter has the ability to see and know the future in no way is forcing the bechira of the person. So it's just a simple answer. Once we understand that we exist in a framework of time, and the Eibishter, it does not have the limitation of time, so then you could explain that the Eibishter knows the future, even though the future is completely in your hands. So why is there even a question here? And the Rambam writes about this, that this is a very difficult question. Now, the Rebbe brings the source of this answer, or really not even an answer. It's pointing out that the question doesn't begin. B'shem Haram al Mushino. Al Mushnino. Huvi b'Taisis Yamtiv Sham. And the Taisis Yamtiv quotes this as well. So he explains this point. If so, the question is, so v'lama kasav Rambam. So what does the Rambam say? A second. Such a great question. We have no way of understanding an answer to this. And here, the answer is so simple that it's not a question in the first place. If there's some answer, some response to this, if there's some reason why this is not a good answer, and you would have to say that the refutation to this answer is so obvious, the Rambam doesn't bother explaining what the difficulty, what the question about Yediyah and Bechira is. But if there is such a simple refutation, so the Rambam al-Mushninu that gives this answer, and he says this is a simple answer, there's no question in the first place, why didn't he understand this svara that refutes the answer, whatever the svara may be? So what is going on here? Fascinating, right? This is the ultimate question of Yediyah and Bechira. The Rebbe says that really, in essence, this is not a question at all. Okay, but now here the Rebbe points out, it depends what level you're talking about. So based on what we learned here in the Sikha, the answer to this is as follows. Klal anal. This rule that the Ram al-Mushaninu is basing his answer on. When you know something, that means that it already exists. And then comes your knowledge of it. That's an obvious fact, no? It can't be otherwise. How could your knowledge create and influence the existence? This entire fact is actually a fact that is only true based on the definitions of existence, logically, the way the world exists. But because the Eibusher's existence and everything about him is not at all defined in these definitions of Seichel, when the Eibusher knows of something, it has a completely different description. It doesn't stem from the existence of what is, and then he knows from it. Idea comes from him himself. Different concept of idea. This is something that we can't really understand. All right, what's the again? Yeah, the in Perek Echad of Rambam, right? The idea of how the Eibusher's idea works. Yeah. So just again to clarify the point, what this means. The regular idea of idea is that there's the existence of the person, then there's something that exists outside of him. That's not you. And then the idea is that you now have this mechanism of seichel, of your brain, to be able to gain a certain knowledge about something that exists outside of you. Where does your knowledge stem from? From within you? No. You are who you are. Then there's the other object or fact that is what it is. And your idea is your ability to connect to something that's outside of you. And from there stems this new information that informs you, that changes you, that elevates you, or whatever that idea gives you. But the Eibusher, though, that can't be true. The Eibusher is Shleimus HaKol. He is everything. There's nothing that you could say about his existence that stems from something that's outside of him. If he has idea, that idea stems from him. Everything that is by the Eibusher, that's what the Rambam really means when the Rambam writes, Hu v'daitoi echad. By the Eibusher, you can't say that the Eibusher consists. He's a composite of different aspects of his existence. There's the essence of the Eibusher, then there's his idea, there's Eibusher's existence before he knows, then there's his existence after he knows. Like by a person, he gains information, and then that's an added part now to what he consists of. He has new information in him. By the Eibusher, whatever he knows stems from him. Everything stems from him. The Eibusher never goes away from himself, never goes down, departs from his existence, is lowering himself. The Eibusher, it's always all him. So the idea is that they're a completely different nature of idea. What the Eibusher knows stems completely from him. Can we understand such a concept? Can we understand what this means? That you know something, but it doesn't stem from that something that you know, rather it stems from you yourself? We can't really imagine what that concept of idea means, but we must say so when it comes to the Eibusher himself. Since he is an existence that's not related to anything or based on anything, he is because he is, so the idea is also part of him himself. Mitzadatzmai. If so, the basic concept that seems to be something that's you can't refute at all, that what you know is a result of what is only true when you speak about the regular concept of knowing in the Gedarim of Seichel. That you know stems from the existence. If your knowledge stems from the existence, so it has to exist. And from there could come your knowledge. But not when you speak about the Eibusher, since the Eibusher's knowledge stems from him himself, it doesn't stem from what exists. So therefore this whole rule does not exist l'mayla. So why? So the Ram al-Mushaninu, which gives this answer and says, there's no problem with the Eibusher's idea because his idea stems from what already exists. So you choose. You're the one that's in the driving seat. You're the one that chooses. But by the Eibusher, past, present, and future is all here and now. So therefore, he knows what you're going to choose. So he's explaining that by the Eibusher, the concept of knowledge comes from something else. How could that be? But that's not the idea by the Eibusher. So how the Ram al-Mushaninu didn't know this, that the Eibusher is not connected to anything outside of him. So the answer is there's two levels. After a tzimtzum, when the Eibusher exists within definitions of seichel in relation to a world, so hine yidiyah zu shel achri tzimtzum hi musav. This level of idea, you could say that It comes as a result of what already exists. Elo, even here, the Eibish's idea is very different than ours. This idea is including what's going to be in the future. Because by the Eibishter, there's no before or after. The Alter Rebbe in Torah where he speaks about Tasalyan and Das Tachten, about Tasalyan and Das Tachten are the two levels that the Rebbe is speaking about here. All right, so there's different. The Rebbe is specifically quoting this Maimer in Torah there, where he speaks about Tasalyan and Das Tachten. It speaks about Tasalyan and Das Tachten in Torah more than one time, and the Chassidus it speaks about Tasalyan and Das Tachten many times. But the Rebbe is quoting specifically this Maimer because the way the Rebbe is describing the union of Das Elyon and Das Tachten here is different than other places. Here the Rebbe is saying Das Elyon means a level of the Eibishter's existence where there's no Gidrei HaSeichel at all. Nimna HaNimnois. A very deep way of describing Das Elyon. So much so that even this simple fact that there's a Yediyah that's a result of what is also not a fact that is true on this level. There's no Nimna HaNimnois. The Eibishter is the source of everything. He exists, he knows. Nothing to do with anything outside of it. And then there's Das Tachten, where there's an existence, there's a relation to a certain existence, and therefore here the Das is related to the Tachten. Therefore it stems from the existence. So based on this we can say, he is discussing the Eibish's knowledge after Tzimtzum. And therefore he says that the answer to the big question about Yediyah and Bechira is that it's not a question, Bechlal. The Eibish knows only after we do. Elamai, he knows it immediately because there's no time by the Eibishter. The Rambam speaks about Yediyah before Tzimtzum, and there's a big question. Over here, you can't give this answer of the Yediyah coming after we choose. The Yediyah comes from the Eibishter himself. If the Yediyah comes from him, so he taken knows everything, not as a result of us choosing. He knows it because he knows it. So if so, where does free choice come in? How is it possible to have any free choice if the Eibishter knows be'etzem what you're going to do in the future? So for that, the Rambam says, if you'll understand how the Eibishter's Yediyah functions, you'll realize that his Yediyah is not a contradiction to your Bechira. Now, why that is, the general point is that the Eibishter's Yediyah is removed of our reality. It doesn't influence, it doesn't connect our reality, but it's hard to understand this. A Yediyah that you speak about, where the Eibishter knows in essence, not in relation to anything. What is this Yediyah all about? What does this mean? So on this, the Rambam says, to understand what the Eibishter's Yediyah is, it's difficult to explain. Very hard to understand. Right, so the Rambam is not, so the point here is, the Rambam is not stam asking a question without giving an answer. When the Rambam says, this is too difficult to understand, the point that the Rambam is trying to say is, this is the answer, that the Eibishter's Yediyah functions differently than our Yediyah. Don't try to give the answer to the question using the same framework of defining things in our existence. And there you're going to try to give an answer. It's not going to work. If you want to have the real answer, you have to understand how the Eibishter's Yediyah works. The answer of the Rambam Moshanino is not the ultimate answer. That's not a real. The Rambam doesn't address that because that's speaking about the Eibishter's existence after its Tzimtzum. Rambam wants to address the Inyan the way it is be'emes, by the Eibishter himself, before it's Tzimtzum, higher than Tzimtzum. And that the Rambam says, over there's a different concept of Yediyah. Don't use the definitions that we are applying to regular Yediyah. That's what the Rambam is trying to say.
Even though that we say that he knows knowledge all the three things, that's according to the result, that's after Tzimtzum. Now we're saying that this level in Chelse's Tshuva is higher than Tzimtzum.
Yeah.
He's making a hiluk before and after. The idea
again, so usually it says that what? I didn't hear so clearly.
Usually it says Yediyah, Yedua is la'achar tzimtzum.
The word of the Rambam.
Tanya. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You didn't know it's over. Sorry.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying.
Here he seems to be saying it's before.
That it's before.
Because it's a feel. That's what
It's
he
different
says.
in you. Yeah. You're right. No, you're right. It's a different level.
Mm-hmm.
Because who v'daita yechad? Why is that after Tzimtzum? Because when you speak about the Eibishter before Tzimtzum, there's no union of das. There's no union of spheres. It's just HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not HaSeichel Baruch Hu. This is the famous thing that the Maharal says. Why is the Rambam saying that the Eibishter's das is one with him? There's no das B'chlal. There's no Seichel. It's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yeah, it's a good point. So that's after Tzimtzum. Here, though, the Rebbe is saying that there is an inyan of das when you speak about the Eibishter himself, but it's in a different type altogether. It's nimna nim noise. It's a das of nimna nim noise. Different inyan. Yeah, you're right. It's not the same meaning that the Alter Rebbe speaks about in Tanya. It's completely different.
Okay.
What about the kasha is coming from somebody that doesn't recognize that they're a finite individual? So your kasha is coming, you're finite.
No.
So you have a kasha on somebody that's infinite. What's
Without connection.
there's no connection. There's no connection. You have your bechira. It's not you being finite. You have bechira.
Right.
That's it. I Dabish is infinite.
But it's a good answer. Someone, a simple person asks you, how could you have choice?
Ramal Moshiach's answer is
It's
a
fine.
very
It's good enough.
yeah, it's a very simple answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the layman, someone that doesn't
True
understand.
answer.
Yeah, it's brought in Torah.
Okay, yeah, well,
Look, there's the point here that the Rebbe will explain is that just like you have the section in Torah which is called Chakira, right? There's Kabbalah, there's Chakira. Chakira were Gedolei Yisrael, Alpi Torah Semes, that were Chaker and explained the Eibish's existence in a philosophical manner. It's not philosophy. It's part of Torah because this was also a chelik of what the Eibishter wanted, that he should be relatable to us. And Chakira is explaining that aspect of the Eibishter's existence. So, for example, that Barbanel, he wrote a sefer Reish Hamana, which the Rebbe was quoting before, that Barbanel that discusses this inyan. His sefer is mostly written al Pisechel. And this is Ramal Mishaninu. This is that time period of the Rishonim where they discussed all these matters, all these big philosophical questions. The Rambam Memoir Nevuchim, the Kozri, all these Sfarim of Gedolei Yisrael, they discussed the Inyanim from a perspective of Chakira. There's also even a sefer from the Tzemach Tzedek called Sefer Chakira, where he compiled the different answers and discussions that he had when he was in Peterburg, and they had different questions, and he had to explain the Eibishter in a philosophical manner. So he put together the writings of the Tzemach Tzedek Chakira. Is this part of Torah? It's a chelik of Torah. This inyan, that there's a tzimtzum, and the Eibishter is relatable to our existence, and you could use certain gidrei seichel to define the Eibishter. Is not only the Eibishter wants it to be that way. He wants to be defined in a way that we could be related. If he's not defined, he'll never be relatable. If the Eibishter does not come down with tzimtzum, so then we would have no way of relating to him, right? So that's a chelik of the whole inyan. But at the same time, though, you have to have the foundation. The makar of the whole inyan is that the Eibishter's existence is beyond anything. When the Rambam wrote the Sefer Meir Nevuchim, the Rambam made a mistake to think that all these cheshbonos and inyanim that he's writing in the Sefer Meir Nevuchim, this sizes up to God. This explains him. This is what it is. This is where it begins. This is where it ends. In Torah Semes, there's no such a thing. The Rambam himself wrote, "Leida sheyasha motzi rishen v'umam tzikol nimtza mitis imotzi." The Rambam himself wrote that David is beyond any definition. And in Sefer Meir Nevuchim, the Rambam gives all kinds of philosophical arguments. Not a stira. It's different aspects. The Eibishter wants both. You have to know who the Eibishter is. And the Eibishter was mitzamtzim himself to come down in this life. So this is over here as well. The Rebbe is saying regarding the question of Yediyah and Bechira, there's the inyan of Yediyah and Bechira in the way we could relate to what Yediyah is in this world, that what you know stems from what is, not the other way around. But by the Eibishter himself, it's upside down. Everything stems from him, not from what is. So over there, you can't give this answer, B'chlal. Over there, the answer is the Eibishter's Yediyah is a different concept of Yediyah, and therefore it's not a state of Torah Bechira. That's the word here.
So, so we talk about Bechira, but at the same time we say Hamech and Mitzadei Gaver.
Yeah.
So in a certain sense, Hashem, he's planting the footsteps
every footstep of man.
We say it every day.
Regarding that, it's Takalav Dafkiya Bechira. It's a different discussion. Because the inyan of Yediyah, the inyan of Bechira is only regarding matters of Torah or mitzvahs. Regarding matters where a person ends up in life, whether you're going to live in Crown Heights, in Melbourne, Australia, or in wherever it is, that's not necessarily your Bechira. Who says you have Bechira for everything in your life?
So
you don't. Just like a person doesn't have Bechira regarding his health and all kinds of things. It's the Bechira that controls your life. Regarding Mech Mitzadei Gavar, you also don't have Bechira. But over here, we're talking about Torah mitzvahs, where the foundation of Torah mitzvahs is that you do have Bechira. You get schar for this, and it is up to you. Here comes the big question of Yediyah and Bechira, and for that, the discussion here.
So I saw in this week's Sikha, Kashas Mishpat himself. The whole union of the plaintiff and the defendant when you go to court.
Yeah, yeah.
So over there it explains that the Rebbe says it
Who
has a
has to
source in
give the
Ruchnis.
argument first,
So the plaintiff is the Yetzer Hara.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
defendant
yeah.
is the Yid. So he says over there that the plaintiff, the Yetzer Hara, now wants to take the Yid to court and say, you did the Aveda.
Yeah.
And then the Yid answers, he gives the answer with the
Moed
Mixas.
Yeah,
So then the Rebbe says, why? Because there's always some good in a Yid. You can't say he was totally
Correct.
immersed in an Aveda.
Correct. Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's all Beruchnius. Okay.
When you have